Hi, I'm Chrissy,
And I'm Jess.
and this is Financial Progress. Welcome, everyone. Before we begin, just want to give a little disclaimer that this is just a conversation between friends. This is not financial advice, and please seek the help of a financial professional before making any financial decisions.
Yes, thank you. We have a special guest today, Christina from She Runs the Numbers. Christina is a family financial literacy educator and a real estate investor. Christina,
Well,
welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
Yes. So we're excited about everything that you do. Today, we want to talk about your financial literacy with kids. But before we get there, we want to talk about you and your financial progress over the years, if you can start with that.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with I actually have a mom who's a CPA. So I had the advantage of really starting or learning about financial literacy and budgeting at a really young age. I mean, I had a spreadsheet when I was 9 years old and I was already planning.
love
I was
spreadsheets.
already I was already planning like how I'm gonna save up for my car. So I feel like
Oh.
I was good in that area at a really young age, but I feel like I still wasn't financially literate and whole. So there's so many parts of being financially literate, and it's not like you have to be a master in every area, but I felt like I was really stingy with my money. Like I
Mm.
knew how to save and I held on to it, but I didn't learn about the power of investing until later. And so I share that because I feel like I've learned that you can't grow wealth just by saving. You really have to learn, the part about investing too. So that's part of my journey. I was really good at saving from an early age, but I didn't know about investing. And so it wasn't until that point that I really learned how to grow wealth.
So, your mom being a CPA, like on this spreadsheet, what was on it? Like just savings or
Yeah, I'm
like
curious.
cars? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I wasn't really spending much. I really try not to spend. I had a Game Boy, and so here and there, I would want to buy games and I would save up, but my priority was really just to save up enough money to be able to buy a car. And at some point, my mom was like, I'll match up to a certain point for your car
Oh,
savings. And so I was really encouraged by her to just save as much as possible.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so impressed that you had a spreadsheet at 9 years old. That's very impressive. Which kind of brings us into like our next topic. Like, how do cultural or socioeconomic backgrounds influence the way kids perceive money?
Yeah, so I think that's such a great question because everybody's going to perceive money in a different way depending on how they grew up, right? So maybe if you had parents that, struggled in the stock market, like they lost it all, or depending on if you grew up within the recession or maybe the real estate crash, you're going to have a different perspective because of how, you grew up and that trauma that may have affected you. So it could just be a matter of like 5 to 10 years difference. I could be talking to somebody and somebody might really have a strong fear of investing or, either investing in stocks or investing in real estate because of their background. So I'm really big on really talking to so many different people and really just having this open mindset of just learning new information, right? Because sometimes when you stay so bubbled and you're only maybe listening to the opinions of close friends and kind of where you grew up and even your family, like you're limiting yourself to knowing so much more information, right? So it's really helped me by reading different books and talking to different people and even going to different conferences and networking with different people. And I learned different strategies. I actually work in a school system and I'm really big on making sure that kids have the opportunity to share their story and even talk about, let's say money, what do you know about money? What's your opinion of it? And then asking other people to share theirs. And so starting at a young age, they're being open to other people's opinions and just hearing different things. Because if not, the only opportunity, really school is the only opportunity for so many young people, right? Because if not, they're just hearing from their parents. And at least in school, it's a controlled setting because a teacher is there that can kind of facilitate and guide things. Because if not, they might be talking to themselves like or hearing on social media.
Do you think because of what your mom set up for you is why you got into teaching for kids?
I think so. I've always had a passion for educating, and I'm actually a math educator. So I used to teach high school math and college math. Now I work as a math coach, so I'm really coaching other math teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't directly have a class of my own, but I've always had this passion for learning and educating others. So I really think she kind of instilled in me early on that love for that. She did want me to be an accountant with her. For that down. Yeah.
That's funny. That's
I'm an
great.
accountant, but it's not. I love working on spreadsheets, so I'm on spreadsheets all day, and I love working in them, so it's good for
Yeah.
me. I
That's
would say
funny.
though, if I would have went to school first to be an accountant, I would have never became an accountant because I was an accountant first and then I went to school, and it just changes the whole dynamic of it. Like,
Interesting.
definitely different.
So with I'm gonna rewind a little bit back to your like financial progress. With that foundation that your mom had given you, did it stop you from like accruing debt or like learning knowing how to build credit and like all that process?
Yeah, definitely. So she definitely, I remember conversations of like not buying more than what you have, right? Like, and I think for kids, it's pretty simple, right? Like, how can I
Mm-hmm.
go buy something if I don't have enough money for that?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem has come nowadays when it's so easy to connect your credit card and with one click, you could have something at your door in a few days,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Mm-hmm.
it could become this addiction many people suffer with. So I feel like she definitely instilled in me in an early age. And that's why I'm also like a big advocate of parents talking to their children about financial literacy. Because when you start these habits and you're open to having these conversations early on, then your child is going to stick. You might
Mm-hmm.
not think that your child is listening, but it's staying in their head and they're remembering and they're also watching what you do as a parent. So if you're telling your kid one thing, but they're seeing you do something else, that's what they're also going to
Mm-hmm.
remember.
What would you recommend? Like me, I have three. I have a I have teenagers. I had to think about that for a second. I have 16, 15, and 8. And at one point, like when I first started my financial journey, I started like showing them at the same time. But then we kind of like, they're teenagers, they kind of like distance themselves. But like, what is the best way to start showing them?
Yeah. So you mean specifically teenagers?
Kids in general. Just, yeah.
Okay, so sometimes people ask me this question, like, when can I start talking to my kids about money? And I say, as soon as your kids actually know how to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because kids already understand the difference between wants versus needs by the age of 3. And then by the age of 7, kids actually have already developed the financial literacy skills to survive as an adult just by
Wow.
watching you. Yeah, by
Wow.
7 years old. And so your kids, even as teenagers, know enough,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not even sharing, but they've witnessed enough to maybe do the same things that you're doing or things that they have heard about to be able to kind of survive as an adult. Not all of those could be maybe the right things, right? So I think it's really important if your kids are a little bit older to have more of these open conversations. Maybe like, what would you do in this situation? Or if your friends have this money, what are they spending it on? So you're kind of getting more conversations with your child at the same time trying to gauge like what they would do in a certain situation. A fear is if you don't talk to your kids about money, one, they're going to be talking to their friends about it. Again, they've
Mm-hmm.
already seen other people deal with money. They already have their own perception. But if they go to college, the credit card companies hit them with, sign up for a credit card. There's so many people I know that have gotten hit with that. And then it's
Yes.
affected them for decades later. Yeah.
I got hit with that.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Yeah.
The first time I went to a community college and I walked in and there was this shiny table with pens and free shirt and it was like sign up for a credit card and I was like, well, my mom said I have to build credit, so I signed up for a credit card. So yes, that happens. So my older ones obviously have a different, I guess, upbringing than my younger one. So they were in the phase of I accrued debt and I paid it, and they saw that process. My
Mm,
8-year-olds was a baby when I was going through that process. So she thinks that everything is cheap. It's only this amount. I want this. I want that. How can I change her? Because the boys are okay. They're like, oh, we don't want you to spend money on that. We're good. But she's just like, I want, I want, I want.
hmm So I don't, it could be a combination that of how she grew up, but it could also be
Yeah.
a combination, like, it's just a different personality, right?
Yes.
Uh, sometimes you get those, especially second and third kids, right?
Yes.
Uh, So I think it's really important to, if you budget regularly, I would say sit her down and have her watch what you're doing, right?
Okay.
Another thing, like my alarm may go off every Monday at 8 p.m. and my kids know, oh, that's mommy's budgeting alarm. Like I have it so routine. I'm looking at my budget and it's such a quick process right now, but they know. So when they're older and I'm like, did you budget? Are you budgeting? Like, they're not looking at me like I'm crazy because they know exactly what I mean because they've sat down with me and they've seen it. The problem comes when so many parents are telling their adult children, did you budget? What are you doing with your money? But the kids have never actually experienced it for themselves. So it is crazy that, I kind of have my spreadsheet, my journal, but like I had enough practice by the time I left my parents' house to know how to do it on my own.
Do you recommend like any specific steps on showing them?
No, not necessarily. So I remember looking at my mom's budget and thinking like, wow, like she has so many expenses, right? Like every month you got to pay that kind of money. I remember thinking it's crazy. But now as an adult, I'm like, man, look at my expenses.
Mhm.
It's a lot.
So, yeah.
Yes.
So I feel like if I didn't experience that, and that was to another level, right? I'm just a kid. That's not the same kind of expenses. It wasn't proportional for me, but it's so prepared me because, the more money you're making, the more responsibilities and kids and so forth, like naturally the more expenses you're gonna have. So it didn't shock me when I was
Mhm.
older.
Did you experience anything that did shock you, or did you have any type of financial setbacks?
Yeah, I've gone through it too. So as much as like I had a good foundation, I definitely struggled. So I was a high school teacher and I was also a part-time professor. Then there was a time like I was running a tutoring center. So I was making the most amount of money that I ever made
Mhm.
before. And then I remember buying a lot of things, just a lot. Because it kind of, I guess, lifestyle creeped up to me a little bit.
Yes. We were just
Oh,
talking about
We
that.
were just talking about that. We're gonna
yes.
record an episode on that later.
Yes, so lifestyle creep got to me too. It gets to
Mhm.
the best of us, right?
Mhm.
And I remember looking at the end of the year like, what did I just spend? Like I made an extra $30,000 this year, and where is that money?
Mhm.
And so if you don't have a plan, if you're not like budgeting regularly, you're not setting goals, like it's so easy. Even if you like make some overtime, you did overtime. If you're not planning out your money ahead of time, it's just like it's so easy for it to just
Yes.
disappear and you have no idea where it went, you know? And
Mhm.
then it's that idea, that thought like, oh, well, I work so hard. Why can't I go out to eat a few extra times,
Mhm.
So it's really understanding like how you can cap those expenses and while your money is still growing, and that difference is like what you're investing in.
You
Yeah,
made you
so
made me think about like rewarding yourself. Like, oh, I did good this week. I can reward myself.
Yes, yes.
definitely, yes. So I hear you have a book coming out. Can you talk a little bit about that? Congratulations,
Yes.
by the way. That's
Thank
Yes.
you.
amazing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a long journey. It's been about 2 years since the thought of the book, and so now it's almost in my hands. Not in my hands yet, but hopefully to have it this month actually. And so the whole idea of the book is I wanted to have a children's book, but I wanted it to be fun. So my boys, I have two boys, they're 7 and 11. They love soccer and they're really also into graphic novels. So this whole book really I wrote for my oldest son. And so the book is a book about soccer and friends, but yet they go to this academy where they learn financial literacy and soccer skills. And so I kind of like weave in financial literacy, money talk, but also it's a journey about friends playing soccer and going to this academy and really learning a lot about money and learning new soccer skills. And it's a graphic novel, and graphic novels are like really in for, that age range. So yeah, I'm super excited
That
about
sounds
it.
very interesting and like
Yes.
different from traditional books that you kind of hear about with it being a
Yeah.
graphic novel. That's amazing.
Do you have a
Yeah.
Thank
date
you.
of when it's getting dropped?
I don't have a date yet. I've been
Okay,
on
okay.
them. I've been on them, like, because we have a conference coming up. I was like, I need to have it in my hands for that conference. So
Yes. Can you
they're
tell us the
pushing for it.
name? Can you tell us the name of the book?
Yes, it's called Goals for Life.
Awesome. Oh, I
So
love
Oh
that. I
my
love that.
yeah,
gosh.
goals for life because it's, your goals, your soccer goals, but also you're thinking
Yes.
about financial goals. Yeah.
Hmm. That's
That's
amazing.
perfect.
Yes, love
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you adjust your lessons for different audiences to ensure that every child can relate to the content?
So, like when I'm doing financial literacy
Mhm.
workshops or something. Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. So I currently go to some schools, and this is like a part-time thing that I do with my Run the Numbers business. I love going to schools, and I also like to talk about math with
Mhm.
financial literacy. So as a math educator, I hear all the time, like, when are we going to use math in real life, right? And I know we're not going to use most of the like the hard math in real life. You don't, but there are many skills. It's funny because my sixth grader just came home yesterday. He was like, Mom, we were talking about negative numbers today. And I'm like, oh, when do negative numbers come up in real life? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Nice. That's
Good
awesome.
job.
Yes. And so there's so many things that you can relate, And so I try to pitch it to schools like, let me do a workshop for your schools because we can talk about these life skills like money, but also I can talk about, your sixth grade class is learning about percentages, so I can tie that in. Let's talk about the 50-30-20 budget rule and how 50% of your budgeting can align to your needs and so forth. And so it really depends on the grades. Once you hit fourth grade, the kids know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, right? So I feel like there's a lot of things you can tie in with money, but you're also tying in those math skills. And then when they're a little bit older, you can talk about debt. And again, because in school, they have already learned about those kind of things in their math class. So I kind of tie in those two things.
Oh, I like it. I did want to ask you, do you still use a spreadsheet?
I do.
Yeah.
I have tried these apps and I just can't get down with the apps. I don't know. I've tried for a few months at a time. It's not like I'm not trying, but I just love the
Yeah.
spreadsheet. It's the
Yeah, we tell
data math nerd in me.
I still use
yeah,
spreadsheet as
Oh,
well.
cool.
yeah. We tell people to do whatever works best for them. I know like and it
Exactly.
changes throughout your journey, right?
Mhm.
Cuz sometimes people like prefer paper, sometimes they prefer an app or sometimes they prefer a spreadsheet, but you have to do what works best for you and whatever can move you along in the process. So,
Yeah, that's so true.
Do you share
definitely.
your spreadsheet with people, like financial
Yeah.
literacy?
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm always open to sharing spreadsheets. So I have one main one that I use for my budgeting, and then I also have a real estate spreadsheet that I use religiously anytime I'm trying to run a deal. So always open to share.
She runs the numbers.
Yes, she
She
definitely runs the numbers.
We're going to close with one last question. And is what one piece of financial wisdom would you like to leave with our audience?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say to always be like a lifelong learner. This is the educator coming out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like you should never stop learning. You should never stop reading. Always pick the brains of other people, because I feel like when you surround yourself by people who know more, that's how you can push yourself to grow.
Yes, definitely. Perfectly said. Well, thank you so much, Christina, for being on our podcast. We really appreciate your time, and we are looking forward to having you on to talk about real estate.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
Thank
Yes.
you.
All right. Well,
Can
thank
you
oh,
share I'm sorry, can you share where people can find you?
yes.
Yes. So I'm mostly on Instagram. You can reach me there. She runs the numbers is my handle.
Perfect.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we will talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.